I never believed in curses, not really. Sure, I watched the movies and listened to the stories, but those were just for fun. Until I came to Black Ridge High. My name's Evan Clark. I was 17 when it happened, just a regular senior who spent his whole life in Houston before my mom got a job offer in a little town called Ellenton, somewhere in upstate New York. A fresh start, she called it. What I didn't realize then was that fresh starts can sometimes come with very old, very dark things buried beneath them. Black Ridge High looked normal enough from the outside. Red brick building, arched windows, the smell of pine trees in the cold air. But the first thing I really noticed was the silence. Schools are supposed to be noisy, right, even in winter. But when I stepped out of the car that first morning, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Like the building itself was holding its breath. It started small. Just whispers. At first, I thought they were in my head. You know, the kind of thing that happens when you're nervous in a new place. But these weren't thoughts. They were voices. Soft, urgent, and coming from behind closed doors. Always the same door. Room 309. I passed it every day on the way to chemistry. It was an old classroom, the glass in the window cracked like a spiderweb. The kind of door people glance at and then quickly look away from. The kind people pretend isn't there. I asked about it once. 309. We don't use that room, said Ms. Ellery, my homeroom teacher, her voice a little too quick, her eyes not quite meeting mine. Storage now. But it wasn't storage. I saw a light on in there. Flickering. Pale green, like something underwater. Then came the substitute. Mr. Halden. He appeared out of nowhere, no warning, no announcement. Just walked into our English class one Monday morning with a box of books and a voice like dead leaves. He looked old, not wrinkled, just aged. Like paper that had been left in the sun too long. Skin too tight on his bones. His eyes were dark and glossy, like obsidian. You couldn't tell what he was looking at. Or if he was even really looking at you. The books he brought weren't normal, either. Leather-bound, no titles on the covers, pages yellowed and frayed. One of them had this strange symbol on the spine, an open eye with a line running through it. He never used the whiteboard. Never gave homework. He just read to us. From those books. We thought it was just some weird curriculum at first. Until Julia Martinez started bleeding from her nose during class. Then it was Theo, who started sleepwalking and was found 3 nights in a row outside room 309, whispering in a language no one recognized. And then there was me. I stayed late one day to ask Mr. Halden a question. About a passage he'd read from one of those books. It didn't sound like English, but I understood it. Every word. And it wasn't just me, I could feel it. It was like something had cracked open inside my head. I waited until the others left, then stepped up to his desk. What language is that? I asked. He looked up slowly. Smiled. That, he said, is the first tongue. The language of memory. And then he handed me the book. Take it, he said. You've already heard it? The leather was cold in my hands. I opened it. The pages were blank. But as I flipped through, ink began to bleed into the paper. Words formed. Not written, etched. Like the book was remembering them. Like I was. The last thing I remember from that day was the sound of the door behind me creaking open. Room 309. I turned. It was wide open. Dark inside. but not empty. Room 309 wasn't supposed to be open. I didn't remember walking toward it. One moment I was holding the book, still at Mr. Halden's desk. The next, I was in the hallway, a few feet from the doorway. My feet moved on their own, like I was being reeled in by a hook I couldn't see. Inside, the air was cold. Heavy. Like stepping into a crypt. The lights didn't work, but the room wasn't completely dark. The pale green glow I'd seen through the window before was there, emanating from an old desk in the corner. The desk was covered in symbols carved deep into the wood. Circles, eyes, twisted letters I didn't recognize. And in the center, resting perfectly still, was a second book. Older than the one Mr. Halden gave me. The leather was cracked, almost crumbling. Its cover bore the same eye symbol, but this time it was bleeding. As I stepped closer, the whispers returned. Not like before, these were louder. Urgent. They weren't just whispering to me. They were arguing. They called me Evan, but also other names. Names I didn't know. One of them said the vessel returns. Another, he opens the gate. I should ve run. I should ve drop the book and never looked back. But I didn't. I touched the second book. The moment my fingers met the cover, the green glow pulsed and the desk shook. The carvings flared with light, and for a second, I wasn't in the classroom anymore. I saw a hallway. Stone walls, dripping with something black and wet. A long corridor lined with doors, each door carved with that bleeding eye symbol. And behind each, something moved. Something watched. When I snapped back, I was on the floor. The classroom was silent again. The glow had faded. But the second book was gone. And the one Mr. Halden gave me, it wasn't blank anymore. The pages were filled. Not just with words, but with memories. Not mine. Not entirely. The next few days were a blur. Every time I tried to read from the book, it changed. One minute it told the story of a student named Caleb who vanished in 1984. The next, it detailed a ritual performed in that very classroom in 1931 by a teacher named Jonas Halden. That name chilled me to my bones. I went to the library. Asked the librarian, Mrs. Turner, if she had any faculty records from the 30s. She hesitated. You doing some kind of project, she asked. Yeah, I lied. She dug through a few filing cabinets in the back, muttering to herself, and finally pulled out a dusty manila folder. We don't keep much from that far back. But, you might find what you need here. Inside was a single photo. A black and white staff portrait. Names scribbled on the back. And there he was. Mr. Halden. Standing at the far right. Same face. Same dark eyes. Unaged. A chill ran through me. He's still here, I whispered. Mrs. Turner heard me. Her face went pale. Who is? Mr. Halden. My English teacher. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. That's not possible, she said. Jonas Halden died in 1942. He hung himself in room 309. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I tried to talk to my friends about it. Theo was absent. Julia had transferred just like that. No warning. No goodbye. The school said her parents moved. But no one saw her leave. No one ever saw them leave. That Friday, I stayed after school. I had to know more. I opened the book again and let it write itself. This time, the pages revealed a map, one that led beneath the school. There were tunnels, forgotten storage rooms, hidden chambers that had once belonged to something called the Black Ridge Order. I followed the map. It took me to the basement. Most of the doors down there were locked or rusted shut. But one, painted black, carved with that bleeding eye, opened when I touched it. Inside, there were candles, old furniture, symbols painted in blood across the walls. And in the center, a mirror. I didn't see my reflection. I saw room 309. Only it was empty. Completely, horribly empty. Except for one thing, the second book. It was back, resting on the same desk. Waiting. I turned from the mirror and Mr. Halden was standing behind me. "You've come far, Evan," he said. "But you still don't understand." His voice was layered. Like three people were speaking at once. One of them sounded like me. "What are you?" I asked. He smiled. His face began to ripple, his skin writhing like something was moving underneath. "A teacher," he said. "A guide. And you are the final page." I ran. I don't remember getting home. Don't remember sleeping. But when I woke up the next morning, the book was gone. In its place was a note. Just 5 words. Class resumes. Monday. Room 309. I didn't go back to school on Monday. At least, I don't think I did. Time started bending after that note appeared. Days bled together like watercolors left out in the rain. My phone stopped working. My mom, when I saw her, spoke in clipped fragments, as if someone had forgotten to finish writing her lines. And at night, I heard scratching. Inside the walls. Sometimes inside my head. The book was gone, but the words weren't. They stayed. Scrawled across my mirror in condensation. Carved faintly into my desk. Burned into the inside of my eyelids when I closed them. I was becoming a page. On Wednesday, or maybe it was still Monday, I woke up with ink on my hands. Lines. Symbols. The bleeding eye at the base of my thumb. The same symbols from the book, but I hadn't drawn them. I tried to scrub them off, but they wouldn't fade. They were inside the skin. Alive. That afternoon, I found myself back at school. Not because I wanted to be. I was just there. The way a nightmare takes you places without asking how. The halls were empty. No students. No teachers. Only the ticking of the wall clocks, all synced, all clicking down towards something. 3:09 p.m. I walked past the classrooms, each one darker than the last. Shadows pressed against the glass like they wanted out. Then I passed a mirror. And stopped cold. My reflection wasn't me. It wore my face, but its eyes were black. Mouth stitched shut. It raised its hand before I did. I ran. Not away from the mirror but toward room 309. The door was open. Inside, Mr. Halden. Waiting. He wasn't alone. Behind him, floating in the air like torn leaves, were the books. Dozens of them. Open, spinning slowly, their pages flapping even though there was no wind. And beneath them, suspended in a circle drawn in salt, was theology, eyes rolled back. Mouth moving, silently reciting something. Something old. "Where is this?" I whispered. "You still think this is school?" Mr. Halden asked. "This is not a school, Evan. It is a mouth. A hungry mouth. And you are the final word." He reached toward me and the books screamed. I mean that literally. The books screamed. 1,000 voices all crying out at once. Names. Places. Warnings. And then, one single word echoed louder than the rest, Fodran. It shattered the chalkboard. Cracked the windows. Made my nose bleed. What does it mean? I choked. Mr. Halden looked almost mournful. It is the name of the one who waits. The ink on my hands began to spread. Up my arms. Across my chest. Burning. Branding. You were chosen long before this place was built, he said. Before your first breath. Before your first dream. I stumbled back, but the room stretched with me. The door receded into the distance. There was no leaving. Not anymore. The next thing I remember is waking up in my bed. Daylight. My phone worked again. My mom made pancakes. Everything, normal. Too normal. I checked the mirror. No marks. Checked my hands. Clean. Checked my school bag. No book. No proof. I went back to school the next day if it was the next day. Hallways full of students again. Laughter. Slamming lockers. Julia was back, smiling like nothing ever happened. Theo too. Even Ms. Ellery. Rough week, huh, she said, handing me a pass for being absent. Glad you're back. But something was wrong with their smiles. Too wide. Too synced. Like someone had copied and pasted their faces from a template. In English class, Mr. Halden was gone. A new sub, Ms. Drexler. Young, cheery. No mention of him. No one remembered him. At least, that's what they said. But that night, I heard scratching again. And when I woke up, there was a message on my window, written in reverse, "You never left." The cracks started on the ceiling. At first just hairline fractures above the blackboard in history. Then in the gym. The cafeteria. Like something inside the walls was pushing outward, slowly waking up. And it wasn't just the building. It was the people. Julia's eyes didn't blink at the right time anymore. Theo would sometimes speak with a voice that wasn't his. And Ms. Drexler, the cheerful new sub, had started writing on the board in that same circular script from the book saying it was Latin. It wasn't Latin. I knew that now. It was Fodranic. The first tongue. The one I'd heard in the book, and now, in my own dreams. Except they weren't dreams anymore. They were memories. Not mine. The dream always began the same way, stone walls. The underground corridor. Candles flickering without flame. The air thick with salt and rot. At the end of the hallway, a black door, pulsing with light like a heartbeat. Each night, I got closer to that door. Each night, I heard more. The voice that called itself Fodran did not speak like humans do. It moved through thought, leaking into me like oil in water. It said I had always been part of it. That the school had only been the surface, a mask stretched over a well. I woke up one morning to find that I'd drawn a map in my sleep. Perfect lines, no smudges. It matched what I'd seen beneath the school. Only this time, the tunnels kept going farther than the foundations, curling downward like intestines. At the center was a symbol I hadn't seen before, a spiral inside the bleeding eye. And a name written underneath it. Evan Clark. I had to go back. That night, I packed a flashlight, a box cutter, and the school's old blueprints I'd stolen from the library. I followed the map. Past the boiler room. Past the block stairwell labeled condemned. There was a door beneath the stairwell that shouldn't have been there. The moment I touched it, the walls moaned. I swear to God they moaned. Inside, darkness. Breathing darkness. My flashlight flickered and died. But the path ahead was dimly lit by a reddish glow, coming from deep below. The floor sloped downward. The air tasted like rust. There were statues down there. Half human, half something else. Bent backward, arms too long, mouth sewn shut with wire, and carved into the walls around them, rows upon rows of names. Some were recent. Caleb Weaver. Julia Martinez. Theo Park. And then, Evan Clark. Final vessel. I dropped the light. Something moved at the end of the tunnel. Not walking, crawling. Thousands of limbs. Not a monster. Not even a god in the way we understand it. It was memory. A living archive of every student, every ritual, every offering Blackridge had ever fed to it. Its surface was made of pages. Its voice 1,000 prayers spoken in unison. It spoke through me. My body stiffened. My jaw unhinged. The voice that came out wasn't mine. You have returned, it said. You will complete the sentence. I woke up in room 309. Naked. Shaking. Ink dripping from my eyes. Mr. Halden stood over me, holding the second book. You've crossed the threshold, he said. Now you must choose. Choose what, I croaked. To be the page, or the hand that writes. Behind him, the walls of the classroom peeled away, revealing the stone corridors underneath, the pulsing roots, the swirling spiral of the God's eye. There is no school, he said. There never was. Blackridge is the skin. Ephedrine is the body. He handed me the box cutter. Write your final truth. I almost did it. The blade hovered over my chest. The ink inside me boiled. My skin itched with unspoken scripture. But then I remembered my real name. Not the one in the book. The one my mother gave me. The one I remembered. Evan Clark. And I ran. When I reached the surface, the school was gone. Just, gone. Where Blackridge once stood, there was a crater. Deep and steaming. I turned, expecting police, sirens, something. But there was nothing. Only me. And a single book resting on the grass. Its cover blank. Its pages waiting. The world went quiet after Blackridge disappeared. No news reports. No helicopters. No police tape. Not even a whisper on social media. It was as if the school had never existed. And maybe it hadn't. I walked home through streets that felt wrong. The street signs were crooked. The air didn't move. And every house I passed had windows blacked out from the inside. The sky looked too still. And every time I blinked, I saw the bleeding eye. Sometimes in clouds. Sometimes burned into my retina. Sometimes in my dreams, if you could even call them that anymore. They weren't dreams. They were continuations. Every night I opened my eyes in that same underground cathedral, surrounded by statues that used to be people. The stone was warmer each time. Closer. The god beneath was calling. And I was almost ready to answer. One night, I opened the book. Not the old one, not Mr. Halden's. This was mine. The blank one. The one I found after Blackridge fell. It had begun writing on its own. Page after page. Details from my life. My thoughts. My fears. Conversations I'd had, word for word. Memories I'd forgotten. Moments I hadn't lived yet. At the very center was a sentence written in that spiraling, dripping script, "He who finishes the story begins the world." And below it, "Right." I resisted. For days. Weeks. But I couldn't stop reading. And every time I did, more of the world peeled away. The grocery store became an endless hallway. The sidewalk cracked open like paper. A man at a crosswalk turned to me and whispered, "You haven't written the ending." Then he stepped off the curb and disappeared. No body. No sound. Just, vanished. I screamed. But no one looked. That night, I found the door again. It was in my closet this time. I opened it. Room 309. Waiting. Mr. Halden was there. But not in the form I remembered. He had too many eyes. His shadow moved on its own. His voice sounded like hundreds layered into one, and I recognized each one. They were all me. Why, I asked. Why me? Because you never were, he said. You are not the author. You are not the character. You are the page that bleeds both. The walls around me pulsed like lungs. Desks floated. The chalkboard melted into smoke, revealing the god behind it, Fodrin, full and awake. It didn't speak with sound. It entered me. Showed me. Everything. The truth, Blackridge wasn't just a school. It was a language, a living, recursive spell written in architecture, memory, and blood. Its teachers weren't staff, they were glyphs, sentinels holding the story in place. The students weren't victims. They were ink. And me, I was the period. The final punctuation. The god showed me the origin of thought, of narrative, of identity. How stories create reality. How every name is a binding. Every word a cut. I begged to forget. But it was too late. Mr. Halden handed me a pen made of bone. Write the last sentence, he said. Seal it. Become it. I lifted the pen. The book opened on its own. And I wrote the truth of everything, the god, the school, the lie of my own name. I wrote until my fingers bled and the room vanished and time unwound. And when I finished the sentence, the world ended. But here's the part you won't understand, Robin. It's still ending. Now. As you read this. Because you picked up the story. And that's how it spreads. You didn't just read Evan's story. You became the page. You let the god in. And now, it's your turn. There's a book waiting for you. You'll know it when you see it. Blank cover. Leather cracked. And on the first page, written in ink that smells like rust, continue. The book was found on a Wednesday, inside the ruins of an old field where Blackridge High used to be, though no records of it remain. Not in maps. Not in databases. Not in the memories of those who once walked its halls. They say the boy who wrote the final sentence was never born. No birth certificate. No photos. No grave. Only this, a journal, burned at the edges, soaked in something that isn't ink, with a single word on the final page. A word so old, it predates the alphabet. It cannot be spoken. Only understood. The reader of that word is said to disappear before they finish it. Not vanish. Not die. Just, be unwritten. So, If you find the book, if it shows up in your house, in your school bag, at the edge of your bed, don't open it. Don't turn the first page. Because the God is still hungry. And now it knows your name.